What's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday and welcome into another Better Baseball MLB DFS live show. I am your host, James Grande. I am joined here on the Better Sports Network and at Fantasy Alarm on all social media platforms with none other than Colby R. Conway. The R standing for ready to dominate this slate. Am I right, Colby?
Absolutely. It's hyphenated, though. That's why it's not RTD. It's hyphenated, so we just get away with just the R. So that's 100% correct.
Well, RTD would be a little too long. I don't know if you could have that Twitter. I'm sure that Twitter handle was taken anyway, so you went with at Colby R. Conway instead. But happy to have everyone here on this Thursday split slate. We had a 5-game early slate that Colby and I covered on the Better Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm this morning. We have the 5-game main slate that we're going to cover here. And Colby, it's an interesting one. As of right now, no pitchers that you and I have talked about, and that's because we haven't talked about any, have been scratched, unlike this morning where we talked about 5 of the pitchers we liked. All 5 were not pitching by the time the slate started. So what is your initial, since this is both our first time talking about the slate, what is your initial thoughts on this 5-game slate that we have?
Well, I think we have to play Max Scherzer.
Yeah. That feels pretty inevitable.
That seems like it's going to be very highly owned. Best spot, best pitcher. I feel like we have to. In a small slate like this, the more you try to create a lineup without him, it just doesn't work. You got to pay up for Max, and I think that's one of the few sure things on this slate.
One of the few sure things. Missed opportunity for you, honestly. But okay, I'll overlook it because you've done such a great job this week. And we can head into Las Vegas just to kick things off and talk about anything of significance on this slate. It is, in fact, a Coors Field slate. And once again, it is obviously the highest implied total on the board. But there's some interesting things that have developed throughout the day. And I'll let you touch on them because we have seen some pretty significant line movement in a couple places.
We have the one that hasn't moved, though, over under of 9 in some spots for San Fran, Toronto.
Yep.
With Chris Bassett on the mound. I know he's good at home, but his biggest struggles are going to be exaggerated by the lineup that the Giants are going to put out, which is left-handed dominant. Yep. So that one seems interesting. Then you got other ones where I believe the wind's blowing out in Chicago. That one's moved from 9 to 10. 2 pitchers that are there. One I do really like. The other I wouldn't mind targeting. There was a little movement in that game. And then that Houston-St. Louis game, it seems like for years Adam Wainwright at home was kind of the go-to. And all I want to do tonight is look at Houston bat. So that game might be trending towards an over as well because I'm also not 100% sold on JP France either.
No, I have been the anti-JP France user. I am anti-JP France in general, so I'm with you. So I'm a little interested because everywhere I look, at least maybe I'm looking in the wrong place, I only see 5-mile-an-hour winds blowing out in Wrigley. And I know, like, anytime there's wind in Wrigley, it's, like, semi-noteworthy. But, like, I guess that remains to be seen how gusty it really is because, you know, both these pitchers have been relatively good recently. And I like Taijuan Walker quite a bit tonight, and we can just hop right into pitcher and maybe start the conversation there. If the wind isn't a factor or is a minimal factor, are you okay getting to Taijuan Walker? Because obviously if we get word that it is like super gusty, then I'm going to back off a little bit. But Taijuan Walker, over his last 10 starts, 6-1, 2.6 ERA. Over his last 4 starts, he's allowed 2 earned runs and has 5 or more strikeouts and 22 or more DraftKings points in all 4 of them. I don't know. Like, I really like the upside that Taijuan Walker has tonight if there's not going to be winds blowing out of Wrigley that just cause every fly ball to leave the yard.
I mean, if you're looking in the wrong spot, then as am I, because I've seen it anywhere from about 5, 6, 7, 8 miles an hour, basically at multiple different places. It's right there.
I mean, like, I know that, like, that rig, like, there are certain ballparks, right? Wrigley maximizes wind. San Fran Oracle minimizes. So you could have 25-mile-an-hour winds blowing in Oracle, but the way the park was constructed, it doesn't matter. If it's only going to be 5 miles an hour, like we sometimes get Wrigley winds at like 10, 15, 20, and then you see numbers balloon or over-unders balloon. If it's at 5, like I'm not all that concerned, especially when you look at Taiwan Walker, who gets a lot of outs on the ground. Like, like look at, I mean, you just look through his logs without looking official. Like, he started the year with 3 fly ball outs. We've had multiple outings of 5 or less fly ball outs. Like, he's not exactly a guy giving up a lot of home runs lately. I don't know. 8,800 feels a little on the low side for me.
Yeah, I mean, for the year, he's a shade under 48% for his ground ball rate. And when you look at his last 5 starts, it's hanging right around 41%. So he's keeping the ball in the ground. It's like we talked about, not necessarily we, but we as a community talk about with Coors. If you hit ground ball 75% of the time, you're not going to become a 40 home run hitter just because you go to Coors. Like, you still have to elevate the ball. You still have to get the ball into that jet stream. I mean, looking at Taiwan Walker, am I allowed to say that he's my second favorite pitcher on the slate? Because
yes,
I really think that's where I'm at. This pitching it's tough after about Scherzer, Taiwan Walker, and the other guys you look at. You got to get creative to craft this narrative as to why you like them, where it's very, very easy to explain the likeness for Scherzer and Taiwan Walker.
Right. And I think I'm with you on the second favorite pitcher. And obviously, anytime you see a 10 over under, that's where you pause for concern. He's the 5th highest projected owned pitcher of the day. Max Scherzer, obviously with a bullet, number 1, double digit or double anybody else, nearly 60% projected. Second is also the second highest priced pitcher of the day. Chris Bassett is getting 30% rostership. He is a relatively good pitcher, but when you have a massive flaw like Chris Bassett has, I mean, it's noteworthy. And it's not a flaw that doesn't matter here. It's not a flaw that you're facing the Seattle Mariners and they're one lefty that they're going to throw at you. Like, San Francisco has, and no Conforto tonight, and that's obviously something of note, and that takes away a lefty bat from the Giants lineup. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lefties in their lineup tonight. And that's notable because that's what Chris Bassett struggles with. 310 ISO, 450 WOBA allowed to lefties. Do you have any interest in getting to Bassett? I know you talked about targeting him earlier, but like, if you were, I mean, any interest in getting to Chris Bassett is really what I'm asking.
I just don't think I can do it because I find myself being too enamored by the San Fran left-handed bats, especially some of those guys at the top of the order and even a value guy, maybe even behind the dish. And he is catching tonight, so that could be interesting for him when we get there. But it's like I said, what Bassett struggles with is what the Giants are actively trying to account for in this one. And they're doing it. And when you look at the lineup that they're running out there, right away, when you look at these left-handed bats that they have, 397 WOBA against righties, 378 WOBA against righties, 341 WOBA against righties. And even at the bottom, even Brandon Crawford, I mean, sure, make what you want of him, but he's a lefty bat that can put the bat on the ball. I don't know. I like that he's pitching at home and his ERA at home is very good. And he's been a good home guy, but his fatal flaw, like you're talking about, is going up against the strength of the Giants offense, which is those left-handed bats.
Right. And, for what it's worth, the Giants get a nice park upgrade too, getting out of Oracle. So that is the top tier of pitching. When you get to the middle tier, I think things get really interesting. Emmett Shaheen is getting the 3rd most love on DraftKings in terms of rostership. I don't know, man. I mean, I get it. But it's in Coors. Do you have any? I mean, you said it at the top. You have to be creative. Is Emmett Shaheen creative enough for you pitching in Coors?
Sure. I mean, I think it can be creative. The Value Plays article done by Vreeland today, he even talks about Shaheen and Coors, just saying that he's been really good. The one thing that I struggle with, and it depends if you like that Sierra statistic or not, but she and Sierra and his ERA could not be farther from one another. How much do you put into that? You got to kind of look into that. For me, I've really just come to really like builds with Scherzer and Taijuan Walker, but it's really hard. I know I just talked about the Sierra statistic, but Sheehan has been really good. The lack of strikeouts has kind of been a bit of a downer for some of his numbers, but I mean, I know it's in Coors, but this Colorado lineup isn't all that scary.
It's not, but it's hard with pitchers like Sheehan who have small samples at the major league level to like really assess how good or bad they are against one specific split. But if you are looking at anything against Sheehan with the numbers that we have, the 200 ISO against lefties is a little concerning when you have Profar, McMahon, Nolan Jones hitting in 3 of the top 6 spots in the Rockies lineup. They have slightly been better against righties this year. I mean, lefties there are actually a 0, as we saw Clayton Kershaw blank them in Coors Field a few days ago. So I'm okay getting to Sheehan, but like and again, that is what you said. Like being creative in Coors is different, but it's not different today. Like it is a popular approach. So I think moving away from that is where I'm going to go. The rest of the position, though, it's really tricky. Like JP France has a fatal flaw. Like Chris Bassett, he doesn't get righties out. And the Cardinals have like some pretty good righties in their lineup. Kyle Hendricks allows a lot of fly balls and, fly balls in the wind. And I know he's been really good, but he doesn't miss bats. So it's really hard to use him when 4 strikeouts is really the ceiling. What if anything else do you have interest in, either someone I just mentioned or below? Do you have any interest in any of these guys?
You could craft a narrative around Adrian Hauser, but if you're going Scherzer, the chances for a win aren't good. Like, because the Mets offense, they can go silent.
Yes.
Like, that's just what they do. It can happen. So you could try to get a narrative there. I just don't like that you'd be then, if you do play Scherzer, you're either going 2 starters against one another or you're going against the best pitcher on the slate. So that isn't necessarily ideal. The bottom is bad. Like, these are all guys that like I want to look at targeting, not necessarily drafting and putting in my lineup. So I don't really, if I'm being 100% honest, I don't know if you can go below Emmett Shaheen tonight. I really don't think you can.
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to duck in case someone throws something at me. I see Beezy and Mark, they might throw like a shoe at me or something. I'd just accept it because this is ugly. I don't think I'm going to get to much Keaton Winn, but he is $4,000. So what do we really need for value? Toronto's offense, although, surface level, you look at it, you're like, holy smokes, like this lineup should score 7 runs a game. They haven't. It's been good numbers, like 330 team WOBA against righties is good. 157 ISO, decent as a team. $4,000. If you get me the San Diego outing, because I don't expect his pitch count to be much higher than that. 60 pitches, is probably the ceiling. Maybe, just maybe, you can make a case for it. Because you also factor in, let's say you're, for the argument's sake, Scherzer and Taijuan Walker is where you go, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not affording really any top bats. And we have 3 games that have 10 implied runs or higher, right? 3. So I'm just throwing it out there as an option that if you're playing multiple lineups, and we've seen this 4K pitcher happen a lot this year, and it has gone really well or really poorly and nothing in between. But if you got Keaton Winn to give us 15 fantasy points, I mean, that is a big fat W. And that is a big fat win.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not endorsing this at all, but to give you a little stroke of confidence, I guess, in the month of June, Toronto has the 4th highest strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. I'm not endorsing this at all, but if I were to be on your side, that would be a little statistic that I would kind of, we could, bump elbows, give each other some nods, little smiles, a fist bump or something, because we're on the same
Right.
page. But again, I'm not endorsing this, but
Okay.
I just wanted that to be known.
Well, I appreciate you half endorsing me because I'll call it a half win. Mark in chat, Mark, what's going on? A couple comments that you've already fired off. Boba Chat is going to introduce Keaton to Payne. Yeah, honestly, wouldn't be surprised. And I'm not sitting here saying Keaton Wynn is like great at all, but he's $4,000. Like there is something to be said about a $4,000 pitcher on a slate that has Coors Field, has 5 games on it, and the pitcher in Coors Field opposing the Dodgers is maybe the worst pitcher in baseball, other than like 3 other guys on his team. So, like, I mean, like, I think, like Colby alluded to, and to be fair, 20% of the field is in my camp. He is the 4th highest projected pitcher of tonight's slate, Keaton Wynn. And it is literally all 20% of us are saying the same thing. If we get the San Diego outing and he just survives 4 innings, like it could be, because no confidence in anybody else. Honestly, like you said, outside of Sheehan, and even Sheehan is a little risky. So, just throwing that out there. 4K, Keaton Wynn. A couple comments here. Beasy trying to be different last time to pick Bassett against the worst team in baseball, and he still got thrashed. Yeah, and then Mark had the exact same comment. The A's threw 4 lefties at him 1 through 4, and look what happened. Yeah, Chris Bassett against Oakland. Yeah, 4 earned runs. So, like, if you're paying $9,600, who would you rather have 6.5 fantasy points from Keaton Wynn or 6.5 fantasy points from Chris Bassett? Because both are on the table here. Just saying. That does it for pitcher, right? We're not playing Wainwright. We're not playing Anderson. And we're moving on.
Yeah. Once we talk Keaton Wynn, it's time to move on.
Once we talk Keaton Wynn, it's time to move on. On we move to the catcher position. Again, smaller slate. So just 4 guys listed off 4K and above. Do you have any interest in any of them? Like, obviously, Will Smith is, the creme de la creme at the catcher position every day. But any actual interest in getting to Will Smith or anyone else above 4K here?
With a Scherzer Walker start, it's pretty hard to try to pay up at the catcher spot, really. So, I mean, I don't mind Elias Diaz if you want to pay up a little bit. He's been pretty good against right-handers for the most part, and obviously home park 397 Woba at home this year. So I think you can go with him. If you pay for Keaton Wynn, actually, if you let DraftKings pay you for Keaton Wynn, that's basically where we're at. I will never oppose someone trying to get to Will Smith. I just won't. But I'm pretty big pay down camp at catcher with like Elias Diaz. If you drop just below, we talked about lefty bats against Chris Bassett. Look who's behind the dish for San Fran, a left-handed bat who hits righties pretty well. So that's another guy that I'm kind of looking at. And honestly, any Giants bat with a lefty is going to be on the radar for me tonight. But those guys are kind of the ones I like the most. And Francisco Alvarez does get a righty. I know he's been horrible of late, but that is the better side of his splits.
Are you leaning which Giants catcher? Because we have both behind the dish officially in the lineup tonight. Sable hitting 6th and Patrick Bailey hitting 5th.
You
can play them both if you wanted to, because Sable can also play in the outfield.
Sure. I would probably lean Sable. That's the one I kind of gravitate to. I know a little bit more pricey, only a couple $100, but he's the one that I lean. He's got 7 homers on the year against right-handed pitching, and yeah, I think he's the one I'd go with behind the dish.
Yeah, his numbers are better, for sure. Bailey is like the cheaper of the two if you wanted to play him, but I agree. Sable is just with the better numbers. I'm going back to with Yanier Diaz, Colby. I don't know. I mean, yeah, you knew that was coming because
that's why I didn't say anything about him.
He's been so good against righties, and Waino just continues to just get shelled by everybody. And, you got to know when it's time to hang it up. And I think we're probably getting to that point. Let me ask you a non-DFS question real quick. If Adam Wainwright gets shelled tonight, do the Cardinals DFA him, or do they just ask him to join their coaching staff? Because there's no way they could, in good conscience continue to send him out there if he continues to get shelled?
Yeah, they can't DFA him. You got to let him you got to make this a swan song then. Let him hit all the different fields and let the fans applaud him and do all this and then, tell him at the season's end like, "Hey, it's time.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, it's
time."
time now.
Correct.
It's time.
Yeah, maybe he serves as de facto pitching coach and they
Right.
just like tell him like, "Hey, maybe every fifth day like you can help the starter." And do something like that. But hey, if they're going to keep letting them pitch, though, we know we got to stack every single night.
Yes.
And like
Yes.
tonight, Houston stack is maybe for one of the couple times all year, I do like it a lot.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? Yanier Diaz, and it's not a big sample. Like it's half the sample of Tucker, Bregman, Abreu, and Altuve. Well, Altuve has actually a smaller sample than him. Yanier Diaz, 284 ISO leads the team. 381 WOBA, second on the team, only behind Altuve. Like he has mashed against righties. And to your point, 5.2 implied runs for Houston tonight. Love this spot. Anything below Yanier Diaz that we'd want to even get to? I don't think we need to because we have the San Francisco lefties and Yanier Diaz, but like Alejandro Kirk is $3,000 hitting eighth tonight. I know he's obviously had a really disappointing year. Anything below Yanier Diaz?
Alejandro Kirk against GOAT win? How can you even say that?
Listen, I have made my case for win, but I have also doubled down and said, I mean, he could literally get shelled, and I wouldn't be surprised if he got shellacked. But I am not overlooking a 4K pitcher on a slate that has almost negative options. Like almost.
This is an unworldly attempt at the biggest hedge that I've
I'm
ever
hedging
seen.
so bad. I'm hedging so, but I have to. I'm hedging. I have to hedge. I'm
No.
targeting the blue. Not only like they have 21 runs scored in a game this year, and we're pegged as like maybe the best offense in baseball coming into the year with leaps like Vlad's going to get back to the MVP year and Bichette taking another leap and Springer's still great and they got Varsho in this trade and things were going to be great and they got Belt out of Oracle and Belts and none of it's happened other than like Bichette being good. But like they still could just start being really good and it wouldn't surprise anybody. So like I have to hedge. I have no choice but to hedge here.
No, I hear you. Other catchers, I do love Yanier Diaz. When you look here in June, 10 extra base hits, including 5 home runs against right-handed pitching. I was listening to the Better Sports betting show, and I believe, was it Servo who was big on the Yelich 1.5 hits,
Yep.
runs, RBI? It was him.
Yep.
So that's a BVP play. So Servo's one of us. So I like that for the BVP community. So I like that.
I'm going to spit my water out everywhere.
Listen, let me double down. Victor Caratini, 8 for 17 with a home run in his career against Scherzer.
No.
I don't like anything else, but if you like BVP, you got that play. But no, we're not going to go down to him tonight. I don't know. We're not going to get down to Caratini, but there is some BVP data there for if you want it, but you're not going below Yanier Diaz behind the dish tonight.
He is hitting sixth. So there is that, right? If you want to stack Milwaukee. Hey, you know what? I wouldn't usually co-sign a Milwaukee stack ever on if it was, but it's a 5-game slate. You could be in the minority and stack against Scherzer, and if he gets shelled, you're obviously in a very good position. So if you're playing multiple lineups, like if you're in a 20 max or you're in a 3 max and you want to be different, stack against Max Scherzer, right? And make that one of your lineups. If you're playing single entry, I don't see myself getting there, but be different if you're playing multiple lineups. On to first base we go, where Freddie Freeman, Paul Goldschmidt, and Vladdy Guerrero top the list. This is the first time I've seen Pete Alonso under 5K in quite some time. But Colby, talk to me about, we could just group this whole 4K and above range all the way down to Cody Bellinger. What is your take on this top part of first base here?
If you got the money, get the Freeman.
Yep.
It's such a good spot. Chase Anderson, 568 slug, 406 WOBA to lefties this year, and he's been absolutely brutal of late. I don't mind Goldschmidt. Like you said, JP France is not good against right-handers, and the most prominent bats in that lineup are righty. So Goldschmidt in a potential St. Louis stack doesn't look all half bad. I think those two stand far and above the rest. I mean, like you basically said, Vladdy Guerrero's set for an 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts against Keaton Wynn. So we just have to deal with that on the slate. But I truly think Freeman and Goldschmidt stand far, far, far above the rest of the tiers at first base.
I'm ready to cancel the show. Show's over. We're going home. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Freddie Freeman, the Dodgers lineup looks back to your regularly scheduled program. Outside, actually, no Will Smith. I'm looking at the updated lineups here. You know, we'll do a little refresh of our DraftKings page here. Oh, it's making me log in. Great. Now you guys all get to see my login, my email, my password. Please don't email me, if you're out there.
No 2-factor authentication either. That's a bold move.
That's a bold
In these state of
In this
affairs out here,
climate,
you need that 2FA.
yeah, I listen. Don't tell the viewers anymore, Colby. Anyways, now that everyone knows my email, login, and social security number, yeah. So we have official lineup. If you don't have the St. Louis lineup, Freeman is in the 2-hole for the Dodgers. No Will Smith, as I mentioned, in the Dodgers lineup. Just wanted to get a little refresher there. Of course, everyone saw what happened. Anything below 4K, I think the person that stands out to me the most right off the bat is Lamonte Wade. I mean, we've talked about lefties against Chris Bassett for the first 10 minutes of the show. Why would we not mention the guy leading off with a 200 ISO and a near 400 WOBA against right-handed pitching as well?
Yep, Wade's probably the first one I would have thrown out there. Other than that, Jose Abreu does have 4 home runs and 3 doubles over his last 68 at-bats against righties. He's finally coming along. So Abreu's very affordable part if you're going to stack against Adam Wainwright tonight. Outside of that at first base, I don't know. When you go down there a little bit, no, I mean, Vogelbach, Hauser sometimes struggled against lefties. You could look at him, but I don't love playing Mets to begin with. And there's only a couple that I feel semi-confident in doing. And unfortunately, he doesn't make that cut.
Yeah, I think the issue with playing Vogelbach too is that that means you're not playing. If you're playing Mets, that means you're not playing Pete Alonso on DraftKings, and that feels terrible. It was like an argument last year that John and I had a lot. Not argument, but a discussion when Pujols was hitting all those home runs, but Paul Goldschmidt was the MVP. It was like, okay, well, we can play Pujols at 45 years old and hope he continues to hit home run, or we could play a Cardinal stack that includes the best player in the game right now. And, not often did we go the Pujols route. So I agree. I guess I would maybe shout out Jared Young, who hit the home run last night. If the winds are going to blow out, maybe, right, in the lineup, hitting 8th, righty-lefty split against Taijuan Walker, but not too confident. I don't think you need to go below Abreu. To your credit, I'll give you some love. You did give Brandon Donovan a shout last night, and then you ended up homering. The Cardinals had a good night last night offensively, not pitching, but offensively. So if you wanted to go Brandon Donovan, who we could also play at second base, and that's a good segue over to second base, where Mookie Betts now resides, by the way. He was a shortstop outfield last night. Now he's a second base outfielder tonight. Mookie just playing all these games at different positions. But what do we like here, again, above 4K? My eyes go to Mookie and Altuve, but what say you, Colby?
Exact in agreement with you. The exact 2 I go with there. Really like Altuve. He made the playbook today, so have to like him for that. And just Wainwright's been so bad. I love a Houston stack tonight, and it's a good price for Altuve. It won't fault anyone for going with Mookie Betts as well, just because Chase Anderson's so bad in the games in Coors. But immediately looking at second base, my eyes jump to those 2, and especially at the top, really only those 2.
Yeah, I agree. Horner's too expensive. Estrada does hit righties well, but Chris Bassett pitches well against righties, and Estrada's been kind of bad since returning from injury. Nolan Gorman's been in a terrible slump. So I largely agree. What about below 4K? What piques your interest down here?
Oof. Can I say not really many? Maybe like a Bryson Stott type if the winds are blowing out. Can maybe look to a guy like him. If you're anti-Keaton Wynn, do you just start throwing any Blue Jay you can get in there? And you look at like a Whit Merrifield type? Yeah. I mean, other than that, I see there's a comment, a BVP comment that catches my eye. So I'm always excited when I see something like that. But Josh Harrison against Kyle Hendricks, absolutely right. 11 for 26 with 3 home runs. I'm not saying it's something, but I'm not
Look,
saying it's nothing.
Ice Through is a big BVP guy. Ice Through loves, and he's gonna immediately come back with a comment. And he's gonna say, "No, I don't believe in BVP as much as you make it out to believe." But if you go through these comments on all these live streams that Ice Through drops, there's at least one BVP mention per live stream. We're averaging at least one. It's basically like Josh Harrison hits per game against Kyle Hendricks. So if you did want to, play Josh Harrison as a punt, I don't hate it. Look, that game has a 10 implied run total. So whether I want to believe that 5-mile-an-hour wins isn't going to be impactful or not, it clearly is to Vegas and to bettors because it opened at 9. So it's been bet up a full run. And that's relatively significant. So I'm okay with getting to Josh Harrison. He has multi-position eligibility. Not that I'd want to clog third up with him, but he does have the multi-position eligibility if you want to go there. I'm okay getting to Miguel Vargas. Again, he didn't do anything again yesterday. He did have a run scored and a walk, but it is just like the Coors Field mention more so than it is Miguel Vargas. Like this slump has put him under 200. Obviously not good, but he does have a lot of extra base hits on the year. He is someone who walks a lot too. I mean, John's talked about the story where they literally told him to go up in spring training to just not swing the bat, and he's clearly taken that to heart throughout the regular season as well. But I largely agree. Like, there's not a lot here. You could play Jeff McNeil because lefties have been good against Hauser, but he's mired in probably the worst slump he's ever been in. So nothing I love here, truthfully, and probably just the guys you mentioned and Ice Through mentioned as well. So let's move over to third, where I think the conversation gets a little more exciting. And for everyone out there, head over to wherever you're watching. Please like this video down below, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you don't already, and head over to fantasyalarm.com. We have the NFL draft guide out right now, and I actually can flash this bad boy.
Ooh.
This bad boy up there right now. If you head over to fantasyalarm.com/draft guide, you can start a 7-day free trial. Buy the draft guide for $26.99 right now. I mean, there is everything from player profiles to bold predictions to rankings, from Colby Conway to Howard Bender. We have everything your heart could desire over there at fantasyalarm.com with the NFL draft guide. So please head over there now. Again, we have a 7-day free trial. Stick around. You'll see all of our premium content for MLB, NFL, like whatever you want, we have for DFS, seasonal, and everything in between. So head over to fantasyalarm.com/draft guide to pick up your copy today. But back to baseball, Colby, third base position. As everyone sees now that I have no money in my bank account on DraftKings anymore, and everything's just going to crap tonight. Max Muncy tops the list, $5,500. Matt Chapman, 48. Alex Bregman, 47. Like, what do we got here in terms of third baseman that you have interest in?
Love Muncy. Again, we talked about Chase Anderson and lefties, so got to definitely consider him at Coors. After that, I don't know. I never seem to get Alex Bregman right. I just don't know if he's one that I would like to. If I'm going to stack Astros, considering where he hits, I would like to have a part of that. Outside of that, it was called in the comments earlier, but Ryan McMahon's in a good spot too. Just the lefty bat, lefty righty split. Got to like that. Yep, there it is. So Ryan McMahon might end up being the play at third base, but if you have the money, I think my favorite play, a bit chalky because he is the top price guy, but Max Muncy.
Yeah, I think Muncy's definitely the top spend. He has one of the best home run odds of the day, and obviously that doesn't always translate to success, but like Chase Anderson has given up 1,000 runs over the last few starts. So he is going to be the most popular third baseman of the day. Bregman's going to be the second most popular. McMahon's going to be the third most popular. And that is like where all the ownership is going. If Nolan Arenado, and we don't have, I believe, anything official on the Cardinals lineup yet. I know that he left last night's game. if Arenado were to play, I do have mild interest there. He has been pretty good against right-handed pitching this year, 185 ISO, 335 WOBA. And we just talked about like not too long ago, JP France has been dreadful against righty bats. 246 ISO allowed, 357 WOBA, 48.5% hard hit rate allowed. Like Cardinals could be pretty sneaky here and not much ownership going their way. So I think if there was someone I'd look to be contrarian with, it would be Nolan Arenado because I don't think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, 5,300 Nolan Arenado. Yes, I'd rather play that than Muncy and Coors or Bregman against Wainwright.
Yep, could be. If you're stacking Cardinals, if he's going to make the lineup, obviously, I think at that point you got to put him in like game stack or just that team stack. I
Yep.
think you look at him, and with let me go back to Bregman. I'm really teetering with this guy because I can't make up my mind. Because when I look at it here in the month of June, he's only hitting 243 against righties, but he does have 4 home runs, 16 RBIs, 9 walks. So like there is production, and it would feel weird to stack Astros and not include the guy that's hitting in the top third of the order in between 2 bats that I'm probably going to include in the stack.
Yep.
Like that's just a hard thing to be like, yep, Jose Altuve and Kyle Tucker and even Jose Abreu 1 through 4 and even Yanier Diaz hitting 5. Let me just do a Houston stack with the 1, 3, 4, 5 hitters. Just seems a little odd.
It's a tough decision to make. Lefties definitely, or righties have definitely given Adam Wainwright fits this year. So, look, this has been the better split for Bregman. 181 ISO, 350 WOBA. He's been better against righties over the last couple of years. That wasn't the case earlier on. Last year against righties, Bregman had a 239 ISO, 387 WOBA. So like we're now getting like a year and a half sample of Alex Bregman. I mean, 728 plate appearance sample over the last 2 years. So over a full season worth of data, 218 ISO, 374 WOBA against righties. Like that's just what he hits better these days. And that wasn't the case to start his career, but we have 700 plate appearance data to back. So yeah, I'm okay getting to Bregman, and I understand why the field is. Anything else, like Brian Anderson has been better against righties, but he has also been a corpse lately. Josh Harrison, we mentioned, is probably going to get some love here at third. Espinal, is there anything that we like other than the top dogs?
I don't think I can get below Josh Harrison here.
Fine by me.
I just don't see a need. I think anything below there, it's like you're trying to be big brain. You're trying to outthink everybody and find this little nugget that's honestly just not there. There's just no need to go below Harrison at third.
Then let's go to short, where I think we have some interesting decisions to make, because I look at this position, and if you exclude Bo Bichette from this comment, every single one of these guys has been it's been a roller coaster ride for this year. Like we've seen Trey Turner have a few monster games. We've seen Lindor on like a little power surge lately, and you brought up the summer splits for Lindor over his career, but he struggled yesterday. Dansby Swanson hit for no power earlier in the year. He's hitting for a little more power right now, and there could be wind blowing out. Adames has only been good specifically at home against right-handed pitching, and now he is only right-handed pitching in this one. Like, where do we go at shortstop? Like, who is your favorite shortstop on today's slate?
I think it's Francisco Lindor. Reluctantly.
Yeah.
Very reluctantly. There's certain positions like on the slate that you kind of look at and you feel good about your top dog at each spot. Like I'm pretty confident about Max Muncy being my top dog at third, Jose Altuve at second, Freddie Freeman at first. I know they're some of the game's best players, but situations also boosting that. At shortstop, I don't know. I can be sold on anybody. Francisco Lindor, Ezekiel Tovar. There's a lot of options at shortstop, but the problem is I think we have quantity without a lot of quality.
Yeah, I agree with that. And is going to be the highest owned shortstop of the day, but it's like I've seen like there's 5 shortstops projected to be double-digit owned tonight. So, like, nobody knows what to do with the position, and Beasley brings up a good point. I think mostly I've been getting to Ezekiel Tovar tonight, and he has definitely been the best, I would say, of late. Over his last 10 games, hitting 385, 5 extra base hits over that span, multiple hits upon multiple hits. I mean, he's riding a pretty big hit streak, and when that hit streak started, I mean, he had a 6-game hit streak going into it, and then he broke it, and then back to 11-game hit streak right now. So 3,600 hitting second. Emmett Shaheen, again, like you mentioned, there's peripheral stats backing that maybe he's getting a little bit lucky. He has been good. I'm not going to say he hasn't, but like it's still in cores and anything really goes in cores. And the Rockies 5.1 implied runs, that's not too bad. Like that's still one of the slate best totals. So I could get behind Ezekiel Tovar 3,600 because it just saves me money. Like I could play Trey Turner and I'd be okay with it. We've seen upside from Trey Turner, like starting to steal bases again. We just saw 37 fantasy points out of him. But unless we get that, it's been largely disappointing at a near 6K price tag. I can play Bo Bichette, and he's hitting 357 over his last 10 games, but Bo Bichette doesn't steal bases anymore. What happened there? Like he's a first round draft pick in fantasy because we wanted it was going to be he's a 30-20 guy, and he 25-10 would be lucky to get at this rate for Bo Bichette. And he's 5,400. Lindor's at his worst split. Swanson has a tough matchup against Walker. Adames has the worst matchup against Scherzer. Like, there's not a lot to like. Adames, for me, I would get to Jeremy Pena just because it's Adam Wainwright, and I know Pena's been really good against lefties, but like 148 ISO against righties isn't the worst thing in the world, although it's also not the best thing in the world either. Righties against Adam Wainwright have a 345 WOBA, so something to note. But I think Tovar is my favorite shortstop personally. Would you dip below Tovar to like a Bryce Terang who got recalled up, and he's starting hitting 7th? He was really good at AAA, almost 1,000 OPS. Brandon Crawford hitting 290 over his last 10 games. Would you play either of those guys, or is there no point?
Probably no point. I just don't like going up against Scherzer. Crawford is a lefty against Bassett, but he just hasn't been good of late. If you're cool with 0 fantasy points, but with the upside of 20, do you maybe take a chance on Paul DeJong if Arenado doesn't play? Maybe he bumps up the order a little bit. He hasn't been overly great against righties, not necessarily great of late, but he has put a couple of hits together. And I mean, the only thing is, in June, does have 5 extra base hits in his last 62 at bats. I'm just gonna very quietly say he's got 26 strikeouts in that stretch too, but we'll ignore that because, we only focus on the positives with some of these dart throw plays that we're making. So, I mean, maybe DeJong if he's going to move up a little bit in the order, but this is one where if you play him, it's kind of like when you go to a casino. No, you go in with the money that you're comfortable losing. That's kind of how it works. And you have to be comfortable with an over tonight from him. But if he gets 1 homer, we're clearly in the green.
Yeah, I mean, here's Paul DeJong in a nutshell, exactly what you described. 230 ISO against righties is elite. That's an elite number. 31% strikeout rate. Elite for the opposing pitcher. So, yeah, I mean, if you're playing Cardinals, it's a cheap way to get exposure to this game that might be the second best environment on the board. And again, Cardinals have a 5.1 implied run total, and nobody's playing them. So maybe something to consider. Something that I will a comment from our good friend Ryan here, who is talking about fading Scherzer. Ryan typically always shows up right after pitcher and then asks a bunch of pitcher questions. I love that, Ryan. But we'll circle back here. I mean, yeah, he is clearly the SB1, and he's clearly the highest rostered pitcher. We mentioned it. If you're playing multiple lineups, or if you have some crazy risk averse feelings on fading Scherzer, then do so. And does that mean you have to play Milwaukee? No. Does that mean it probably correlates to a Milwaukee stack? Yeah, you should probably play Milwaukee if you're fading Scherzer because he's 60% rostered projected tonight, and no one else is more than 30%. So you're going to
Yeah.
get Milwaukee all at sub 5% rostered. So
Yeah,
you know, if you want,
I get the mindset behind it. It's just I personally I couldn't I don't play
no,
a ton of GPP, so it's
no,
not really something I would consider. And I just when you look at it here in June, Milwaukee, third highest strikeout rate, hitting only 206, a 284 WOBA, and a 75 WRC plus. It seems like we're just fading the situation and not really
yeah,
the player. But I get it in GPP. If you fade him and he blows up, you've probably now what do you say? Sure, it was like 60 some percent.
60%. Yeah,
You've
60%.
now have an edge that maybe you and only 40 other percent are going to have. So like, I get it. But it is certainly not for the faint of heart.
I mean, I think like how I would approach it, and we can move on to outfield and wrap it up a little bit. If I'm playing multiple lineups, like if I'm in a 20 max, I'm perfectly fine getting some Scherzer fades and Milwaukee stacks. If I'm in a smaller tournament where it's a 3 max or, you know, single entry, more so 3 max, because I know a lot of our subscribers play the 3 max. I would, instead of just full bore Milwaukee, if you want to fade Scherzer, you could just fade Scherzer and also not dip your toes into that Milwaukee stack. Like you could play a one off of Christian Yelich, who we're going to get to, or you could play a Victor Carantini if you wanted to, because he's $11,000. If he just gives you 15 or 16 fantasy points, that means Milwaukee probably didn't do enough to win you a tournament, but they did do enough to limit Scherzer's upside. So if you're playing a 3 max, I'm perfectly fine fading Max Scherzer, but I'm also not looking to like go full bore 4-man, 5-man Milwaukee stack. I think that's getting a little too crazy. 20 max though, you know, go crazy because like you only got. I mean, you probably have the winning lineup in there somewhere. You only have 5 games on tonight's slate. Moving on to the outfield, I think we have some pretty obvious names here above 5K. And Bryce Harper is probably my least favorite, and that's really scary to say. But above 5K, I've been getting to a lot of Mookie Betts, JD Martinez, and Kyle Tucker today.
I agree. Harper's the one I like the least. I love Kyle Tucker, 5-game hit streak. If we haven't mentioned it yet, Wainwright's not good. He's not good against lefties. I could
I
have
don't
cut
think
the
we've
sense that
mentioned it.
not
I actually
good.
don't know if we mentioned it.
Oh,
I'm not sure.
wow. We waited 47 minutes to do that. That's pretty good. Yeah, Wainwright's not good. Big night last night for Tucker, so I like him to continue. I think he's my favorite piece of any Houston stack tonight.
Agreed.
I really like Kyle Tucker, but I love the outfield position just from top to like middle. Like there's a lot of really good options, like just beneath that 5K mark. Very chalky, but Jock Peterson, good BVP numbers. So everyone out there should be
Yep.
jumping for joy with if you're the BVP truthers out there. But he's 4 for 6 with 2 home runs against Chris Bassett for his career. He's got a 378 WOBA this year against right-handed pitching. So I love Jock Peterson tonight. And then I know maybe it wasn't as fruitful last night, but I'm hoping for better tonight. Nolan Jones against a righty again in Colorado.
Yep.
Why not go back to the well?
I mean, it's unfortunate because like he had some good at bats in that game. He just walked a couple times. Like he was on base 3 times, and they scored 9 runs. He only scored 1 of them, and he walked twice and didn't like have the opportunity to do anything else. So, like good real life game from Nolan Jones being on base 3 times, but obviously, you know, when you're paying 4,400 in cores in a game with 17 runs, you want more. Look, we said it last night. Colorado's going to be overlooked again because everyone's playing the Dodgers, and I can't fault you if you wanted to play the Dodgers because Chase Anderson again is one of the worst pitchers in baseball at this current moment. So if you wanted to play Dodgers, by all means, but no one's going to play the S side of that game. So I do like Nolan Jones quite a bit. Going down, I think Brandon Nimmo's in a good spot at 4K. Adrian Hauser's been particularly bad against lefties, and you know, do I expect 2 home runs from Brandon Nimmo? No, I do not. But it is in the cards that he hits one or gets on base multiple times and scores multiple runs. This guy, all he needs to do is stay healthy in order to be a 100-run scorer every year. We haven't gotten that a lot because he hasn't been healthy a lot, but I do like Nimmo quite a bit against Hauser. What about below Nimmo? Is there anything that like jumps off the page to you, Colby?
Yeah, so obviously Jerks and Profar is interesting. I
Yep.
don't mind him there. Should be atop of that lineup again, so I like that. I also like Brandon Nimmo's teammate, Tommy Pham. I know
Yep.
Hauser's a little more susceptible to lefties, but when you look at Pham, 945 OPS, 4 for 9 in his career against Hauser, 349 WOBA against righties. Numbers have been there for Pham, and then right around that same price point, I love Jordan Walker. We talked about some of these Cardinals bats against JP France. Jordan Walker has got an OPS over 1,100 in June. Look at his recent logs there. This is a very, very, very good spot for him. And while I do want Arenado to be in that lineup just for the sake of the lineup, if
Right.
Arenado's out, could we get Walker up a spot or two, maybe another extra at bat in a pretty high scoring game? Like you said, Cardinals have a higher implied run total, and we're not talking about them enough. And this is the best side of Walker splits.
Right. Yeah, he has been an absolute monster against right-handed pitching. 183 ISO, 395 WOBA, solid 8.5% walk rate. Like it's been like I don't know. I see a projection that has him hitting seventh tonight. If known Arenado is out, maybe we do see him hit fifth, and they just keep Gorman hitting sixth, or Contreras to the four hole, and Walker hitting fifth. I don't know. I like that idea. I do want Arenado in there to cause JP France more pain, but I do love Jordan Walker. $3,100. He's probably like my favorite outfielder in this range. I could definitely get to Blue Jays if you wanted to get to Dalton Varsho, 3,500 if you're attacking Win. Definitely can get to the Dodgers guys. Like Peralta Hayward hitting fifth and sixth provides you so much value with your Dodger stack because Freeman's 6K and Betts is 6K and JD Martinez is almost 6K and Muncie's 5,500. Like Peralta and Hayward are both garnering a lot of ownership for a reason. And Peralta's been really good of late and really been an underrated hitter his entire career. Like this guy had multiple like 300 seasons in Arizona, and just like nobody even cares. So I like David Peralta tonight. I like Jason Hayward, has good numbers against righties. Anything else? Like, would you go back to the Brandon Marshwell here against Kyle Hendricks? I mean, can we? I mean, he has 5 multi-hit games over his last 6. He is raking right now. From a non Brandon Marsh whisper to a Brandon Marsh whisper, can we believe? Do we believe in Brandon Marsh tonight?
I want to. It's a good spot. If we're gonna get the winds blowing out, he can obviously run into a ball, and I think I said this exact sentence last time, but he's like seeing a beach ball at the plate right now.
Right.
I think you can. Hendricks has been half decent against lefties this year, but in recent years that hasn't been the same story. So take that what you will. But yeah, I do like Marsh tonight. He just hasn't cracked the cut for me for any
Okay.
of the lineups that I've gone. But I do like him. Just I'm not as big on him as I was the other night.
All right. Anything below 3K that stands out, or you ready for this lineup note that I got from St. Louis here?
Oh, I want to be excited for it, but now you got me
You
a little
should be.
worried with the
You should
tone.
be. You should be excited.
Okay, that's good.
Nolan Arenado hitting fourth tonight. Jordan Walker hitting sixth tonight. So even with Arenado back, they moved him up a spot. They switched him and Nolan Gorman. So we actually have 3 consecutive righties for St. Louis hitting 4 through 6. So we like that. Donovan, Goldschmidt, Nootbaar, Arenado, Contreras, Walker, Gorman, De Jong, and Tommy Edman to round it out. So I think that's a really good Cardinals lineup. And I think we could parlay this right into our Colby's Cornerstones and Grande's Gems. If you want to, because my contrarian stack, and I'll just start. My favorite stack is going to be the Houston Astros, and I'm going to be a little contrarian with this whole thing. My contrarian stack is going to be the Cardinals. I think this game is going to explode. Not a lot of pitching, and I think there's going to be a lot of home runs hit for St. Louis. They've obviously let us down a lot this year. A lot. I can't stress that enough from a betting perspective, from a real life perspective, from every angle you can talk about, they've let us down. There has been signs of life offensively. I think that has direct correlation to Goldschmidt coming around and Nootbaar back and Jordan Walker being called up and Contreras hitting for a little more power lately. They're going to be my contrarian stack. My home run call, I did it on the Better Sports Betting Show. Jock Peterson was my home run call tonight. I'll even do a little like young Jock here to get us like the home run call effects going because we don't have any cool effects here. We just have me doing the young jock. Um, my star of the night. I'm gonna stick with this game. How about I go with Nolan Arenado here in this game? No one's gonna play him coming off the injury, and no one's playing the Cardinals. And I'm gonna steal your value play of the night. I'm sure it's gonna be Jordan Walker. I'm gonna steal that because that was probably gonna be it. I'm stealing it. I'm sorry. You can also use him, but I'm stealing it.
Yeah. Well, let me one up you then,
Okay.
because why not? Although I'm going to be a little bit of the same. Favorite stack: Astros,
Yep.
Contrarian, Cardinals.
Let's
That's just,
go.
yeah. I mean, we had a 1 in 10 chance of picking the same thing here, so that's what kind of how it was going to go. Now the odds were a little bit different. Jock Peterson was mine. I was going to go with him for my home run call as well, but I will pivot and I'll go to Freddie Freeman.
Okay.
Be a little chalky there. Go with Freeman. Value play of the night is Jordan Walker, and my star of the night is also Mr. Jordan Walker.
Ooh, and you know what? I did that with Gunnar Henderson a few weeks back, and he had like 28 fantasy points. If Jordan Walker hits a home run and 3 hits, I mean, he'll be in every winning lineup tonight. So I love that. Cole, we have a couple minutes left, and I don't see any questions right now other than Ryan giving us a shout. He does like Houston as well. Good leverage off Houston or off of Coors. I agree. Why don't we build here? I think you and I pretty much settled on Win and Scherzer, right? That was how we. Oh no, Taiwan Walker was our SP2. Unless you wanted to go Sheehan. Like, what's your thoughts on the SP2? Is it Scherzer or Scherzer Walker or Scherzer Sheehan? You think?
I'd like to try to keep Walker because I would love to get Tovar and may end up even going like a McMahon or a Nolan
Okay.
Jones in there as well.
Okay.
Seeing how we can get to. I think we have to go Tovar at short. That's
I
just
agree. I
one of the
agree.
better values. And then we have to go Jordan Walker because I can't say he's going to be my value play of the night and star of the night and your value play. And then we just say, screw it, we're not going to play him.
Probably gonna go Sable a catcher. I
Yep.
assume another value play, and then I think this is where things get interesting because we want Houston,
Yes.
and or else we'd have a problem. Actually, I remove that, and we go to Yanier Diaz at
Yep.
3,200.
I like that.
What do we feel at first base? Because there's a lot of directions we can go. If we want to go Houston, Jose Abreu is staring us to get us value. Like that is the most obvious value, I think. If not, we have elite spend ups up here. We have Lamonte Wade in the mid tier. What do you think about first base here?
If we go with Abreu, an elite spend up that we could go to is either Kyle Tucker or Jose Altuve, and we could get that third piece of the Houston puzzle.
Yeah, I want Tucker. I think you and I
Okay.
are in probably both in agreement there that Tucker
Yeah.
is preferred.
Mhm.
It is harder, I would say, to go back to second base because it's a really crappy position. What is your thoughts here? Like, we could try to spend up on Mookie Betts and then get like a Peralta in the outfield, but where does that leave us at third? We could give a shout to Ice Through here, who gave us the Josh Harrison BVP is great. And if you BVP truthers want to overthrow me here, I'm okay going Harrison. He's really cheap, 2,400. What do you want to do here at second? I mean,
Yeah. Let's go with Harrison because that should give us
a
a good
lot of
little
money
chunk of
to
change
get.
here.
Yeah, anything we want.
Yeah. And I mean, Betts has outfield, right?
Betts has outfield. Yep.
But we won't be able to get Betts in Muncie. That's the only thing.
Yeah, we won't be able to get Betts and Muncie. We would, however, be able to get Muncie. And then if we wanted to play, I don't really like Outman. I'd rather play like Peralta if we wanted to. And then we'd have a bunch of money to spend if we wanted to. Um,
Yeah, go
or we
back to
could just
first or second. Can we get up from? I wouldn't want to go to second. Can we go up from Harrison at all to anything? Meanwhile,
mm,
up
I'd
to
say we just
31.
probably just stay here. We only got,
Yeah, leave it.
yeah, I think we
Leave
just
it.
stay here. Final lineup: Max Scherzer, Taiwan Walker, Yanier Diaz, Jose Abreu, Josh Harrison, Max Muncy, Ezekiel Tovar, Jordan Walker, Kyle Tucker, David Peralta. $700 left. Colby, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve this battlefield with you on the live streams this week, sir. Tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, me and Justin Fensterman on the ones and twos. Colby, you're on the podcast with me tomorrow morning?
Yep.
See us there at the podcast. Thank you guys for listening.